You're listening to the Spondifferous podcast, an episode titled Defeating the Void. We had some other ideas for the name of this episode, like I Hate When My Brain Turns Off, or Creative Farming, the Opposite of Inspiration. But Tanner and I have started calling it the void so often that we decided that should be the title of today's episode. So here it is. What is the void?
The void is something that kind of hits you like a truck, where you're in a creative space and you're making art, you're making whatever it is that's important to you. And things are flowing fairly well, and pretty much out of nowhere, all of that creative flow, creative energy just comes to a grinding halt. And it's, you know, for example, if I'm writing a 4-line chorus and the first 3 lines are amazing, the last line is for some reason always the one that gets me hung up. And so I'll get those first 3 lines and I'll be like, yes! And then the last one comes and I'm like, I don't know how to finish this out. And I'll spend the next 3 hours on that one line. And I feel like I have slipped into this realm of creative suppression that I can't get out of. A large portion of time that I'm in the studio is time spent trying to avoid that. It's not a conscious like, oh, we can't go into the void, we can't get hit by the wall, but it's just keeping the energy from dying, basically. Yeah. And so if there is something that's getting me hung up, usually I just, all right, let's do something else. Let's try something different. So that you almost kind of keep moving.
But that can be a rut.
Yes.
Like a 2-hour, 4-hour rut that kind of makes you think, I'm done for the day.
Yeah.
See, I like to think it's like we operate across 3 realms creatively. It's like, let's say over on the right side. I give inspiration over here on the right side because, you know, right-handedness, it just seems like the better side.
It feels right.
Right. It feels right.
Right.
Yeah. Inspiration is the greatest thing. When you feel it, it's like, first of all, just for the short time that it's present, you feel like you can really grasp whatever idea it is you're trying to grasp. You have a good hold on whatever it is that you're wanting to create or you're working on. Sometimes I even feel like I can see the final product. Not that it's created yet, and I'm probably going to lose that vision.
And you can almost visualize the path to get there.
You can almost well, that's what's more hazy,
exactly.
For sure.
Yeah.
Like, for a moment...
That's what goes first.
Yeah, that's what goes first. For a moment, you have that sight of what it could be, and it excites you. I think that's the excited feeling people get. But if I really break down what inspiration is for me, it's that clarity. And over here on the left side... Sorry to everybody that's left-handed. I really don't mean anything by it. Or do I? You have the void. It's the opposite of inspiration over here. And it first sucks. But I think it sucks less if you understand what it is and what to do with it, which is what you and I have talked a lot about over the last month and a half. And even did a whole episode on before I dropped my hard drive and lost all the files.
Yeah, this is round 2 recording this podcast.
Yeah. It's the inability, the void is the inability to see it, to grasp your idea or your concept. And you're just, no matter how hard you try, it's like blackness, it's blank. And the worst part is that you said it hits you like a truck. And I think you say that because, at least from my experience, you were inspired, and then it's a sudden shift into the void. You're like, Wait, what happened? 10 minutes ago I was inspired and I could see it. And now it's like, you know, maybe I wrote my 3rd line of the song, and then my 4th line just like erases off the page of my brain. I don't know.
Yeah. Or it can start to happen when you have like this sort of disembodied idea that feels amazing, and you're like, okay, now I have to bring it to life. And the minute that you get into the details of trying to figure out how to do that, you don't necessarily have the tools to do that. So if maybe you have an awesome, amazing idea for the ending of a story, but you have no idea how, like, when you actually sit down, how to start it, what the characters are going to be, the motivations for everybody, and just every detail that winds up needing to be decided on just overwhelms you in the moment. And you're like, oh, this actually isn't the simplest path to get there that I thought it was.
Yeah, you sit down to actually write it out and it becomes much more complicated. And I think that's something that, practice helps a lot. And we'll talk in a second about how to practice and what to practice for that. This third realm, because I mentioned 3.
Right.
Okay,
so we have inspiration,
the void.
The void.
And then the middle
Right in
one
the middle.
is, it's here. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's just where we're at most of the time.
Whatever this is.
It can easily shift us into an inspired state, right? Which is usually how that works. You're neutral, living your life, and then something strikes you, or you see something, or hear something, you experience something. It makes you feel. And your brain does this interesting thing sometimes where you convert what you just experienced into something that feels original. And now you're creating and you're inspired. And so you sit down. Maybe you know what you and I talk about a lot. Inspiration is a fleeting moment. So take advantage of it. Don't let it go to waste.
Use it when it happens.
Yeah, respect it when it comes.
Yes.
So maybe you feel the inspiration and you start respecting that and you start creating, like right on the spot, on the back of that. And then 20 minutes in, the void hits. And you might have not even managed to get very much done anyway, but like here you are, a blank slate. What do you do?
The solution to the void, and something that we've talked about a lot, is the process of over-creating and then cutting away the excess later. And I like the way that you phrase it all the time, which is having a willingness to just write down everything or whatever it might be. And even if that's trash, because
the paper that you're writing on isn't that valuable.
It's not that, it's not that precious. And so just write it, just record it, just put it down and create something. Don't just sit there saying, that doesn't work, and all the while you just have this disembodied idea in your head that you're saying no to. Just keep saying yes to whatever pops into your brain. And then later on, when you're not in whatever funk you're in, then you can see maybe there actually is something to that idea that popped into your head, and you can edit it, you can carve it, you can trim it, whatever it may be. Or if it sucks, you can trash it and no one has to see it ever again. But that's kind of similar to a process. I know that you've messed around with it a little bit. It's called like morning pages, but you do a different version of it.
Yeah, a lady named Julia Cameron wrote a book where she mentioned this thing called morning pages. And it's basically the first thing you do when you wake up is you write 3 pages in your little journal or whatever that you keep by your bed. So I think the image there is that you don't even get out of bed. It's literally the first thing before you brush your teeth or anything. And your creativity, your writing process, your storytelling wakes up before your editor wakes up. So you start creating something and you don't have the capacity yet to overanalyze, and that's good. And just like you were saying a minute ago, whether this be your digital audio workstation and you're creating music, or it's your canvas and you're like, oh, $2.50 canvas, like these things you're working on, they're not too expensive, they're not too precious. Your DAW, digital audio workstation, it's not fragile. You're not going to break it by recording into it.
And nobody's going to ridicule you if you make something that sucks.
Because they don't have to see it.
You don't have to show it to them. Or you can show it to them 10 years from now and be like, look at how bad I used to be.
And have a laugh, yeah. So it's really all about just creating and being aware that you need to kill your editor. Get rid of the thing inside of you that is going to critique before you even create. And the only answer for that is create. Create first.
And so the solution to the void is to just barrel right through it.
Yeah. Defeat the void by going through it.
Yeah.
So if you're in a moment where you're in the blackness and you are the opposite of inspired, but you're really wanting to create, it helps to sit down, which you might not even have a prompt yet, but sit down and just try to figure out, where do you start? It could be a really simple place, and you just move forward one step at a time, saying yes to everything, like improv. People say in improv, you say yes to an idea.
Yes, and.
Yes, and.
Yeah.
That's right. And then you say yes and to that, and then yes and to that, and you keep doing that until, I guess, you happen upon a conclusion to your little comedy skit, your improv sketch.
Right.
And that is To Kill Your Editor. I mean, it's seeing what happens, and it's not something you can be so brilliant and in full control of your brain that you have a grasp of anything. You are just as surprised as anyone else at where it ends up. It's succumbing to creativing. Mm-hmm. Succumbing's not the right word that I wanted to use.
It kind of works.
It kind of does, but like what was I thinking of?
Submitting.
That's the word.
Okay.
Submitting to the void, not thinking of it as this bad guy, something to kind of submit to creativity through killing your editor, or morning pages.
If you get in, it's kind of like we've talked a little bit about different people who have discussed this idea of when you say no to whatever experience that you're in, even if that experience is painful, and you're not present with that experience, it doesn't help you and it just makes it worse. But if you say yes to the experience that you're going through, even if it is hard or tough or painful, you can actually kind of dwell inside of it and see beauty inside of it. And so it's an opportunity when you're in the void of creativity to say yes to it and use that as an opportunity to pivot in your style or your approach to what you're making, and maybe wind up with something that you wouldn't have wound up if you were just cruising right along and everything was fine.
Yeah, definitely. So that's been my solution to the void. That's actually been really helpful for me. The last month, every day I've tried morning pages, but my own version. I go on Microsoft Word and I just type out like one page. It's usually between 700 and 900 words that I type, and that's just me, I guess, scratching my storyteller itch.
Yeah.
I'm actually wanting to start doing the equivalent of To Kill Your Editor, but with music, which I don't think is just sitting down and writing lyrics. I think it's sitting down with an instrument and writing music, starting with a note and seeing where it takes you.
Yeah.
And then from there, sure, then do it with lyrics. I know that for me personally, it would probably start with music in that regard, or with a canvas if I'm, because I am wanting to learn to paint.
Right.
Because my mind is everywhere and I just love artsy
Just
stuff.
creating anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably just like saying F it to the idea that like your paint, your pigment is like super expensive or whatnot. No, it's not. Just like squirt it on the canvas and spread it everywhere.
What did you buy it for? You bought it to make stuff with.
You bought it
so
to use
make
it.
stuff with it.
Or even maybe it's a healthier thing to say you bought it to waste it.
Yeah, I just started getting into film photography, and it's like, every single picture is like
Precious.
like 20 cents or something, like okay, that was a quarter. And then after a whole roll you spent like $10, or the math probably doesn't check out there, but
that's a great example because you only have so many shots.
Yeah, and so
you have to ship them off to even get to see
right.
them.
So one good thing about that is that it does make you think a little intentional with what you're trying to capture, as opposed to like a digital camera that's just like but at the same time, if I were to be too precious with it, I would never take a photo. And so I just finished my first roll, and I'm almost certain, especially considering that the light meter's broken, or not broken, but doesn't have a battery.
Right.
It's probably all going to look terrible. But, I write down the settings that I use for every picture so that when I get it developed, I can see, okay, that setting didn't work for that. And then it's just a fun process of learning, and it's not trying to force every single hobby or creative idea into something that's like productive necessarily, or money making, or whatever it may be. It's just like, is this something that I enjoy doing or want to do? Yeah. And so I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it to the degree that I'm still enjoying it. I don't have to be a master film photographer, but I want to do it, and by doing it, I'm going to get better over time if I'm not scared to do it.
Yeah. So let's recap this episode.
Yes.
The void is bad. Inspiration is great. The void is almost like the opposite of inspiration.
Right. So you defeat the void by just going right through it.
I use To Kill Your Editor every day, and that's what I would
And all
recommend.
that boils down to is not being too precious with what you create. Knowing you can always edit, revise, or just completely scrap.
Yeah. And if you end up with an excess of stuff that you created and 80 or 90% of it is junk, then that, as you just said, is what you want to do. You know, grab a highlighter, highlight the good stuff.
Yeah.
Ditch 80% of it.
Like what you just did on
Just like
this
I
paper.
did. For anyone watching on YouTube, you know, it kind of looks like that.
Yeah, those are notes for this episode.
Those are notes for this episode. Oh, I really liked this idea of creative farming. You know, like this question: are you someone that has things falling into your hands often?
I saw that.
Like someone getting inspired often.
Yeah.
Or are you someone that has to do a lot of creative farming?
Yeah.
And I think there are those two kinds of people.
I need to do creative farming.
See, and I feel that
You do not.
luckily, I mean, I love it. I get inspired a lot. I just do. And it feels like something's just fallen right into my hands.
Yeah.
And then I have that to work
And
with.
then you have to do something with it.
For that reason, I didn't think that I needed To Kill Your Editor, morning pages. Because I thought, okay, that being morning pages being an exercise to, you know, help you be more creative. I was like, I'm a creative guy. But then I did it for a month, and I don't know how to put it into words. It's just that the experience works.
Yeah.
I feel more creative.
So do you think it would work with things that aren't just waking up and writing 700 pages of a story, but like waking up and...
700 words of a story.
oh yeah, not pages.
Man, what a day that would be.
No. So like for me, the thing that would come to my mind is waking up and opening Logic and coming up with some sort of musical piece that might be able to be used.
Yeah. The process of taking 30 minutes to an hour and a half and creating with your editor turned off could, in any medium, it could give you something you didn't expect to get out of the experience. It's different than if you sit down with a vision and you work towards it. Kind of. I mean, sometimes in that you end up with something you didn't expect, sure. But this is really like, you're basically just opening the door to unexpected creative things to happen. And I will say, it's like once every 5 sessions of To Kill Your Editor
that something good happens.
That something really good happens.
Yeah.
And so out of 30 days, I've got like 5 or 6 things that I'm proud of.
You've got to earn it. Not every day is going to be great.
Yeah, that's why I want to go through each of these pages and highlight just the little words, because I swear 80% of this, more or less, is just junk.
Yeah.
But I really would swear by it. It works.
Nice.
That was Defeating the Void. This is the end of the episode. You can go find us on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, TikTok, etc. We have music out. We have videos out. We're just here having a good time. We hope you are here having a good time, and we'll see you next time.